Everybody just there?
Oh, Shemai. Oh no.
That's okay. Yeah, that's background, I think. Oh no, that's now it's the whole wedding thing.
Can I close this window?
Yeah, go ahead. We need to turn the fan on, maybe that one, lightly. Hare Krishna, nice to see everybody. So we'll go ahead and start.
Oh no.
Gora Briganya Gana Gocha Goloruharam Goramanga Gura Chama Gopyara Kopa Vriksham Upalagada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namani Tama Adama Kichuna Bachira Jachia Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Goranga Prido the other way Hariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namure Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bhidana Parama Pramata Tasmai Jaganmangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madhavirapi Gopala Sri Kuryat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Vishayusta Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabhava Pahiman Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I think we'll be able to do this again next week. Next week's a little bit unsure because we're leaving the next day, probably. I think we have tickets for Mayapur. Is that right, Krishna Queen? Next week, on the 17th, we're leaving for Mayapur, correct? So we should go to next week session. Okay, good. Okay. And I want to thank everybody for being live on the camera. So Linda Sundari's not here. She may drop in a little bit later. This is usually she's dressing the deities right now in Denver. We'll see what happens. But we've got a couple questions from Triyuga Prabhu. Triyuga Prabhu is here, and they're really cool questions too. So we're on our question discussion thing. So Triyuga Prabhu comments. He says that you talked a few weeks ago that we need to hear by faith. What exactly does it mean to hear in faith? Please explain this in more detail. Well, just as we understand everything is according to the three modes of nature, hearing is also according to the modes of nature. And according to the quality of faith that we have, we'll hear in a particular way. So hearing by faith means that, first of all, we want to hear from someone whom we have faith in. And I can't stress that enough. If that's the only point that we make in this session, I'm ready to stop right now. Because it's just so very, very important. It's very close to my heart. I'm really sick and tired of just trying to push people who don't want to hear, don't have faith in you, to hear. Why should they? But we do this so much of the time, and then there's so many conflicts between people. In our Gaudiya Vaishnava line, there's many different conceptions about different things. And why not? Prabhupada spoke about unity and diversity, but we owe it to ourselves to hear from someone whom we have faith in. And we owe it to our Gurudev, and we owe it to our disciplic succession that we should limit who we speak to, the persons who have faith in us. I remember once I was traveling with my Guru Maharaj as a personal servant in 1994, and we were in a small preaching center somewhere in Europe. I won't mention the place. And there was a devotee who was a president, temple president of that center. And he's quite a nice devotee, quite respected in the yatra. And his guru had spiritual problems and unaware. And he was looking for a guru. And he really liked my Guru Maharaj. So when Guru Maharaj came there, he was kind of checking him out, testing him. And at one point, he came to Guru Maharaj's room where he was staying. I was staying with Guru Maharaj as his servant, to ask some questions. And one of his questions was, does the jiva fall from the spiritual world or not? It's a little bit of a controversial thing. I don't feel the need to champion any particular thing right now about that. But my Guru Maharaj spoke very clearly about that. He said the same thing that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the same thing that Prabhupada says in his books, the same thing that all of our previous acharyas, up to Bhaktivinoda Thakur started to say sometimes some things that we fall in Bhaktisiddhanta. But prior to them, we don't know of any acharya who spoke like that. So anyway, Guru Maharaj, I know I've had long discussions with him about that. And this devotee was asking that question, and for maybe 2 hours, he had the same question. And Guru Maharaj was speaking to him, but Guru Maharaj wasn't answering the question. He was just kind of going in crooked ways like this and that. And I was really struck by it, just watching the whole dynamic. And I was letting it go on because I understood the subtleties behind things and how this devotee was looking for someone to take shelter of. And I wanted to facilitate him in whatever way I could. And so I just didn't say anything. I didn't want to get in the way of the exchange. But finally, it was getting late, and Guru Maharaj needed to rest. So I said something, and he left. And then Guru Maharaj did his thing in the bathroom. And then a little later, I was giving him a massage. And as I was massaging him, I was really in my mind this exchange he had with this devotee. And finally, something clicked with him. And I told Guru Maharaj, I said that if someone doesn't have faith in the person, then there's really, you can't speak anything. And Guru Maharaj practically leaped out of the bed. Yes, yes, very strong. And that I understood the point. This is such a very, very important point. Don't think that what we've gotten from our Guru Janas is just some cheap thing that we just go out in the street and we argue with people about. Or as one famous person in America, maybe you remember who it was, I can't remember his name, P.T. Barnum maybe it was. He said once, he who is convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Who was it?
I don't remember who it was, but I remember the same.
Yeah. So what's the value of that? All that happens is Facebook arguments. And you spend long and with quotes and things, and nobody even remembers it 1 week later. It has absolutely no value. Or I say it has no value, but that's not true. A value means zero, but this is not zero, this is negative. It has a negative value. It just disturbs you, it disturbs the other persons because of those shraddha. First is faith, then sadhu sangha, and then bhajana kriya. So if we don't have faith in the person, how can we follow their instructions? And I've seen sometimes people who are more interested in what Prabhupada might call churchianity or institutional spiritual life. And there's a lot of persons like that in the world. And Srila Prabhupada made something to accommodate them, to encourage them, so they can also get some benefit from practicing bhakti. But such persons, they often come, and what is their motivation in hearing? And even if you tell them something like we're saying here, that you should hear from someone you have faith in, sometimes they become disturbed. They say, no, you're a separatist. Because I'm a very good, loyal member, and I hear in the Bhagavatam class. And that's all that I hear. And sometimes they criticize. And I could make a long list. I can tell you, Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, Sachinanda Maharaj, so many others. Sometimes devotees criticize them why they're doing some separate program with their disciples. Well, hello. Do you know why they're doing that? Because that's their job. That's their job as guru. They should nurture those particular persons. And if you don't have some kind of program like that, it's very difficult to nurture them. So they should have faith. And that's the qualification. Just like that devotee, although he had qualification in terms of seniority, in terms of position, he was a temple president, he was kind of a prominent person in the yatra there, and he was also coming looking for a guru, he didn't have the minimum wage to pay, the minimum price to pay for what my Guru Maharaj had to say, which was faith. And he was testing him. So we don't want to speak to someone who doesn't have faith in you. There's no point. Someone who just wants to argue with us. And I see so many times devotees equate argument with bhakti. And that's another huge misunderstanding in spiritual life. You're misunderstanding Vedic culture with bhakti culture. Because in Vedic culture, it's a fact, there's a lot of stress on debate. Because we want to make it's a progressive culture. And different kings, when my mother came to, we were speaking about it the other day, when my mother came to India for the first and only time, she immediately got some books and was reading about Mysore, where we were visiting, and this place and that. And she was sharing some thoughts from the books. And one of them was an historical book about the king of Mysore. And she was reading about his court and how there would be hundreds of different people coming. And some of them were followers of Shankaracharya, some were followers of Madhva, some were followers of Ramanuja. And he would welcome everyone. And they would have debates and discussions. That's very, very progressive. That's a very good, healthy society where you have different types of thinking. But the Mahabharata very emphatically says, Tarka apratishta. That Tarka, or argument, is inconclusive. And we've given very lengthy discussions about that. I don't want to go there right now. That's a whole nother topic. But some people think that argument is the everything, and they've replaced it with bhakti. And perhaps one of the reasons for that is that to have bhakti, that's really difficult. And who knows who really has bhakti? Maybe that 4-year-old little girl who's coming to the temple and jumping up and down with the kartals, maybe she's got bhakti. Or maybe it's the 75-year-old sannyasi guru who's there, or maybe it's a housewife, or maybe the brahmachari, maybe none of them. Who knows who really has bhakti? But who has gyan? Who can debate? And as we sometimes tell, there was one personality who once debated with Ramanujacharya. Trying to remember his name. Yagyamurti was his name. And he came and he challenged Ramanuja to a debate, and much like the person who challenged Jiva Goswami to debate, Ramanuja's response was the same as Jiva Goswami's. We don't do that. I'm not interested in wasting my time with you on debate. And so this Yagyamurti said, fine, then you accept that Nirvishesh Brahman is superior to your form of Bhagavan. And Ramanuja couldn't tolerate that. And so began several days of extensive, lengthy, very involved, subtle, intricate debate on Vedic literatures. And finally, Ramanujacharya was defeated. And he was a little depressed. Not conclusively defeated, but he couldn't defeat Yagyamurti. They'd gotten to a point where Yagyamurti was a little victorious over him. And so that night, Ramanuja went to the ashram and he prayed to the deity of Lord Vishnu there, known as Varadaraj. My dear Lord, this is very bad. So this person, they're minimizing your personal form. Please do something. And he took rest. And early in the morning, just before he woke up in the Brahma Muhurta time, he had a dream. And the Lord came to him. And he told him, hey, Ramanuja, you're my dear devotee. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. And with that, the Lord disappeared. And then Ramanuja woke up and he felt pretty good. He had this very ecstatic dream, which wasn't like a dream from eating too much before you take rest, but it was a very powerful dream. And so he performed his morning duties that day. And then he came out of the ashram for another day of debate with this Yagyamurti. And when he came out of the ashram, Yagyamurti was standing outside waiting for him. And Yagyamurti was feeling pretty good about himself. Yesterday I defeated the great Ramanuja. Ramanuja came out of the door, and when Yagyamurti saw him, Yagyamurti was defeated completely, without one word, without any debate. Just seeing Ramanuja, who was so effulgent and so ecstatic after having darshan of Lord Varadaraj in his dream. When Yagyamurti saw him, this person truly is Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, Nasochiti Nakamchiti. He's really on the Brahman platform. I defeated him yesterday, but look at him. He's so effulgent. He looks so blissful. He's completely detached. And what do I have? I just have some dry philosophy. This person's, and he surrendered to Ramanuja at that time. So Tarka Apratishta. It's a big misunderstanding, and devotees think that argument or debate is the basis of bhakti. And sometimes we want to solve so many issues in the society. And let's not go there and disturb our minds just getting a list of different issues. But there are many issues of contention in society. And there's always going to be issues of contention. And after we finish this list, there'll be another list in the next generation, another list after that. And maybe one or two of them might continue. But there's always something of contention. That's not the point. The point is that we should understand that bhakti is not obtained through argument. Argument is something very, very cheap. And someone may be a very advanced devotee, but they may not be very good with argument. And they may be defeated. And moreover, very frankly, for those of you who want to save the world, there's a few devotees like that who want to save all the devotees in ISKCON and reform in this way or that way, either in a liberal way or a conservative way, whatever, it's fine. I'm not very impressed with your debate program. It may be part of things, but it's not going to change the culture. Which will change the society is when we have discussion. And that discussion is based on faith. So just like Triyuga Prabhu, when we go out on the street and we're speaking to people, sometimes we see they don't have faith in us. And then really, you don't know, what can you do? You want to give them a book. You want to give them Krishna. Maybe you're feeling some genuine compassion. Krishna, please help us. So what can you do? Well, if they don't have faith in you, or maybe it's a devotee who doesn't have faith in you. Maybe when you give class, they get up and walk out. I'm not going to hear Mataji giving class. Or I'm not going to hear this person. He was a new devotee when I joined. I joined way before him. Why am I going to listen to him? So in that situation, you have to do the hard work to get them to have faith in you. What is that hard work? That you should behave in a way that they have faith. Because if they don't have faith, what can they hear? And therefore, the Padma Purana, after Srila Vyasadeva, during the list of the offenses of the holy name, the ninth offense is Ashadadana Vimuke Prashinvati Yaschopadesha Shivanama Paradha. It's an offense of the holy name to preach to someone who's Ashadadana Vimuke Prashinvati, who's Ashadadana, doesn't have faith in you, who's Vimuk, who's just, they don't like you. They're just not interested in your thing. Prashinvati, that they're just reluctant to hear what you have to say. It's an offense. So we should all want to give dignity to Srila Prabhupada's movement. And sometimes devotees, we have this confusion. When should we start speaking about Manjari Bhav? When should we start speaking about Govinda Lilamrita or even Chaitanya Charitamrita? And some devotees say, they have to go through the Bhakti program. Some say they should have first initiation. Some say that they should have a Bhakti Shastri degree. Or this. I think all that's nonsense. Because someone may be a sannyasi and not have the adhikar to hear. If they don't have faith in you, then they don't have Shravanadikar. Because Shravanadikar is based upon faith. The faith to qualification to hear, Shravanadikar, is based on faith in the speaker. If they don't have faith in you, I don't care if they're a big Sanskrit scholar, a big sannyasi, you can't speak to them. And on the other hand, you may meet someone on the street, and I've seen this with Satyaraj, with some of these discussions with some scholars. Some people have some faith in him, and they have some faith in our Gaudiya line, and he starts speaking to them about Manjari Bhav and Ujjwal Nilamani and this and that, and they get it. They're understanding it, where sometimes some sannyasis don't get it. So it's not a hard and fast thing. It's not an institutional kind of rule. So it's so very, very important that we should understand what it means to hear in faith. Can you hear me okay, Gorni Thakurul? I'm cupping your ear. It sounds not so good. Let me see what's happening.
There is some back voice, back sound.
Jai Gore is playing a harmonica in the background.
Yeah.
Just Shania, there's a wedding thing going on. Sri Yuga Prabhu, is that okay? Yo?
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So Sri Yuga Prabhu has another question also. Let's go on to that. It says, we often hear that a regulated life is essential to the success of devotional service. However, we also hear that bhakti is independent and not bound by rules, but above them. It all seems a bit contradictory to me, because it's as if bhakti does depend on something. Please dispel this contradiction. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Madhurya Kadambini goes to great lengths to explain how it is that bhakti is swarat. Bhakti is independent. But at the same time, we say bhakti stu bhagavad bhakti sangena parijayate. Repeatedly, our acharyas quote this verse from the Brihanaradiya Purana. Lila Purushottam. Yeah, Jai Gore is playing the Shania and the tabla here in the room. There's a wedding thing going on. I'm sorry.
And we have a nice new mic, so it's definitely picking it up.
Yeah, we have the wrong kind of mic right now for this. So, bhakti is independent. You can't, it's not that you go to Mangalartik every day and you're going to get bhakti. You're going to get prema bhakti just because you go to Mangalartik. And so many times I've told the same story about during the Vietnam War, when the FBI decided to try to figure out the Hare Krishna people, and they because so many people during the Vietnam War were avoiding the draft by joining the Hare Krishnas. So the FBI sent a spy to the Honolulu temple in Hawaii. And that person went to the Sunday Feast program, and he danced in the kirtan and sang and took the shot, and some devotees sat next to him, and he said, yeah, I really like this, and how do you join? And the devotee said, wow, you just move into the temple, we'll shave your head and come to Mangal. Great, I'd like that. So he moved into the temple, and he was there in the temple for, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks or whatever, doing the spy stuff. And during that time, he was chanting 16 rounds, attending the morning program, following 4 regulated principles. And he went back to the army and the FBI, and he made a report, and he told them that these guys are crazy, that this is worse than the army. The army, you don't have to get up until 5 o'clock in the morning. These guys, you got to get up by 4 o'clock in the morning, and you can't take a hot shower. They want you to take a cold shower. You can't have a girlfriend. You can't eat the hamburgers. You can't go outside to restaurants. You can't watch television. You can't smoke cigarettes. You can't drink. These guys are completely crazy. It's worse than the army. So, but to one degree, it looked like that person was a devotee. So the question comes, who's really a devotee? And does it, just because I'm doing some external thing, does it make me a devotee? Well, the answer is yes and no. It's not always so simplistic. Yes, anyone who's dressed like a sadhu, who's living like a sadhu, and living like a sadhu in India generally means someone who avoids marriage and family life and is independent, usually financially and otherwise. Maybe they're begging and they're doing some kind of bhajan. That's a general understanding of a sadhu. What level they're on, that's another question. So, from one perspective, anyone who's going to Mangalartik and all that, we consider them a Hare Krishna devotee, and we consider them to be a sadhu. And that's important because Rupa Goswami says, Krishneti yasya giri tvamana sadhuyeta, that anyone who's chanting, we should give respect to them. That person's a sadhu. But it's more than just that, because a spy, and we've experienced this in Russia during the Soviet era. There were a number of persons who joined. Nice to see you, Brenda Sundar. We're going to get to your questions next. Hare Krishna. A number of persons joined in the Soviet time, and Ranjan Maharaj told me about this. He said that some of them, they get initiated in things, and after 5 or 10 years, they come to him and say, Guru Maharaj, I have something to tell you. That actually, when I joined, I was working for the KGB. And Ranjan Maharaj made the point, you can't really quit working for the KGB for most people. So you never really know about that devotee. But, and he says, look, I'm really sorry, I joined, the spy, but this is really good stuff, and now I want to be a devotee, and I'm a devotee. So it's not just the external thing that we're doing. But at the same time, we do hear, as Triyuga Prabhu is pointing out, that a regulated life is essential to the success of devotional service. So how is it successful? Let's turn to a famous verse, which is found in the Padma Purana. Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhavid Graham Indriya Seva Mukhi Jiva Swayam Eva Sparettuga. Now, a number of you have heard me speak about this at length before, and you may know what I'm going to say now. But this verse speaks about our sadhana, and it says very unequivocally, Ata Shri Krishna Nama Adi. Adi means etc. Krishna's name, etc. And Prabhupada translates it sometimes as Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's associates, Krishna's abode, Krishna's pastimes. Ata Shri Krishna Nama Adi Nabhaved Graham Indriya. With your senses, your indriya, you cannot perceive those things. So much for our sadhana. With your senses, you can't perceive Krishna. So then what in the world am I doing getting up so early every morning? Anapani's thinking this right now. Forget going to Mangalartik, man, I'm just going to sleep in. What is this, right? No, she's not thinking that. Okay, there's a reason why we do our sadhana, more than just this. If we think that on my own strength, I'm chanting like this, I'm going to get this or that, then we're thinking that we're controlling Krishna. But we should understand that bhakti is swarat. Bhakti is independent. And it's not that bhakti is controlled by my little tiny little bit of sadhana that I've been doing for 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 years, which is so insignificant. It's not that Bhakti Devi is impressed with that. So bhakti is independent. Bhakti, if she wants to bestow herself on someone, she will do so. How does bhakti come? Bhakti stu bhagavad bhakti sangena parijayate. Bhakti comes from the devotee. So how do we please the devotee? This is such a basic question we spoke on many, many times. And some devotees, some bahirmukh janas, some external persons, they think atmavan manute jagat. The way I think, everybody else thinks. And I really like it when people have a birthday party for me, they make cake and ice cream and stuff. That's pretty good. So, and I like it when everybody glorifies me. I like it when everybody gives me presents. So I'll do the same thing for other people, and then everybody will like me, and we'll go on. Or Gurudev, if I glorify Gurudev, then I like to be glorified. Then if I glorify Gurudev, then Gurudev's going to he'll eat out of my hand, and I'll be able to control Gurudev. Don't think like that. And we may think then that if I wear t-shirts of Gurudev and show myself as a number one disciple, then Gurudev is going to appreciate that very much. And there are a lot of people who think like that. Read Prabhupada Lilamrita. There were a lot of devotees who thought like that and still think like that. And that's okay. Because again, we're not against anyone who practices bhakti. We want to encourage everyone. But that's not Sudha bhakti. That's some other thing. And there's some passion there. They want to impress people that I'm the best disciple. Fine. If that's what they need, because some people, if you come and tell them, you give this little speech that we're giving right now, and you tell them that really, you don't want to show off your devotion to your guru, rather Gopa Yad Guru Matmana, as Sanatana Goswami quotes in Hari Bhakti Vilas from Simalayan Tantra. You should hide your guru. If you tell them like that, then they don't know what to do. And they just become discouraged and they leave. Because there's so much in this Atmavan Manite Jagat, there's so much into this thing of respect for themselves. They're living in the world of respect, and they think that to get respect is the goal of everything. And I have to give the same respect to Gurudev, and to be a big disciple means I'm worshiping Gurudev like anything. And I know devotees who stopped chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and started chanting their Gurudev's pranam mantra on their beads. They took it to that extent, and practically took down the pictures of Krishna from their walls and just put big pictures of their guru everywhere. That's not really Guru Bhakti. It looks like it is, but it's not. Guru Bhakti means to understand the heart of Gurudev and to please him. And what pleases Gurudev? When we do Nam Bhajan. And therefore, we get up from Mangalarti. So we got to get up on time. Not because, Krishna's he's doing Ras Leela with Radharani, as we sometimes say. Then all of a sudden, Krishna stops and Radharani says, what is it? And Krishna says, well, Madhavananda is chanting japa. It's really powerful. He's in Mangalartik saying prayers right now. So I got to stop everything and pay attention. Krishna doesn't even pay attention to that. Krishna's mugdha. He's completely bewildered by the gopis. But if you say this to the devotees, that Krishna's not going to hear your prayers, we've been through this so many times, they become very, very discouraged. No, Krishna definitely hears the prayers. And it's so encouraging how he hears the prayers. It's so personal how he hears the prayers. He hears our prayers through our Gurudev. And therefore our Gurudev is Sambandha Datta. He is our connection with Krishna. He gives us our connection. He is our connection. So that regulative life is essential. Because that's how we're going to please Gurudev. Not just that I jump up and down and sing Amar Guru Jagat Guru. My Gurudev is great, and your Gurudev, anyway, good luck next time. Right? Not that we have some attitude like that, such an attitude of pride, but we want to please Gurudev, and Gurudev is pleased when we chant Hare Krishna. Right? So bhakti is independent. And bhakti can be bestowed on whoever she wants, but bhakti at the same time is controlled by the devotee. The devotee has bhakti. He has Krishna in his heart. Krishna say Tomara, Krishna Ditipara, Tomara Shakatiyachi. Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings like this, that Sadhguru, he has Krishna in his heart, and he can give us Krishna. So he'll give us Krishna if he's pleased with us. And he's pleased with us not if we act like fanatics and glorify him, although he may understand, well, that's kind of cute, and let me try to encourage them. He may be so merciful, he doesn't discourage even people like that. And sometimes we may think, why is this sannyasi guru, why is he tolerating such fanatical disciples? That's between him and the disciple. We stay out of it. He's trying to help those persons, and maybe he understands they need some particular medicine. So in the Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami at length discusses how Krishna does not have mercy, which is a really shocking comment, because we say that Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu Jagatpati. That Krishna is the ocean of mercy, and he's very kind to the fallen. And then you're going to come and tell us that Krishna doesn't have mercy? No, Krishna does not have mercy, because Krishna is Satchidananda Vigraha. He's completely full in bliss. And Jiva Goswami establishes in Bhakti Sandarbha that mercy comes when someone feels some empathy. When they say, a man he hears about a woman who's given pain, has so much pain in childbirth, and he says, wow, I know what you mean. I know how you feel. He doesn't know how it feels. A woman who's not given birth, she doesn't know how it feels. But when you've given birth to a child, then you can speak about that. Someone who was an alcoholic before, he can understand what it means to be an alcoholic. Someone who's broken a bone, they can understand the pain of what it means to have a broken bone. And Jiva Goswami elsewhere in Paramatma Sandarbha, he says this is one of the functions of suffering, so that we can understand the pain of the other person. So Krishna doesn't understand pain. He never experiences pain. He's Satchidananda Vigraha. It's not that. So how can he feel compassion? But he does feel compassion. And we should understand it, and we should claim it. And it's so beautiful. He feels compassion in the form of Krishna Kripa Shrimurti Gurudev. In Krishna's form as Sri Guru. So that's even more encouraging. We say that Krishna has a lot of mercy. I don't know. Is Krishna paying attention to me right now? He's with the gopis and Raslila. Probably he's not going to pay attention to me. Maybe tomorrow he might see me. Maybe there'll be a few seconds in between the Raslila and the Noka Lila. We're doing some boat pastime. Maybe he'll just glance down here at me. I don't know. Good luck. But when I think that my Gurudev, he's a manifestation of Krishna's mercy. And when he's pleased, Yasya Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, Yasya Prasada, Nagatika Toka. When Gurudev's pleased, then Krishna becomes pleased. That's our philosophy. And that's why we're doing bhakti. And Gurudev can give bhakti to whoever he wants. Because he's a distributor of bhakti, and it's completely independent. And he may give bhakti to someone who doesn't go to Mangalarti. But he's very pleased with that person. He sees maybe they can't go to Mangalarti because of this reason or that reason. But he's touched, his heart is softened by their sincerity. And he gives them mercy. So we want the mercy of Gurudev. And how do we get that mercy? By living a regulated life. Gurudev is very pleased by that. We shouldn't think also that well, Madhavananda said, Gurudev, we don't have to, it's not just by chanting, so I'll just be really nice and sweet and humble with everybody. Maybe Gurudev will give me some mercy. No, we should show that I want to be strict. I want to be sincere. I want to be serious about my bhajan. I'm so impressed whenever I go and visit the disciples of Gopal Krishna Maharaj in their homes. We stay with a number of devotees in different places in Delhi. All of them have a full morning program every day. Gopal Krishna Maharaj, that's one of the things he insists on for initiation. So Prabhupada wanted this morning program, so you do it. And some of them do it a little quickly, or whatever, but they sing all the prayers and do the whole thing. And what's the problem? You just go through that, and by doing that, it shows that we have some sincerity, and we can maybe please Gurudev. So Tri Yuga Prabhu, yo, is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Do you have any other reflections you want to share on that, Tri Yuga Prabhu? Sorry I talk so much.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for taking part with this. Anyway, you're satisfied though, that answers your question, Denise? Okay. So going on to Brinda Sundari, we were going to jump over you because you weren't here, Brinda Sundari, but you're here now, so Hare Krishna. And I haven't really prepared this. Your questions are a little in depth. So we've got 3 questions from Brinda Sundari. Number 1, I'm wondering why it is said in the first chapter of Adi Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Narottam Das Thakur was a direct disciple of Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami when he was said to be initiated by Lokanath Goswami. Let me just go on and read all 3 of these, and we'll go back little by little because it looks like they're all kind of following each other. And also wondering why Prabhupada translated the 40th verse in the first chapter of Adi Lila as, quote, Srila Nityananda Ram was a plenary expansion of the Lord, and I've been initiated by him. The Bengali seems to say that I'm his servant. Prabhupada translates it as, quote, I've been initiated by him. Even though it is said in the beginning of the first chapter that Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami was a direct disciple of Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Goswami. Question 3, in the purport to the 34th verse, Prabhupada writes that the guru who first initiates one with the Maha Mantra is to be known as the initiator. So could you clarify, given the above mentioned points, the meaning of, quote, initiate that is being used here? Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things going on. I'm going to speak according to my understanding. That's all that I can do. And here in our little group, some devotees may have a little different understanding, and please feel free to speak up and say something. This is a controversial point, first of all. We have in our line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta what he called the Bhagavat Parampara. And that Bhagavat Parampara, sometimes the gurus in the line are separated by 50 or 100 years or something. They've never met each other. And we stress on that Bhagavat Parampara as being a parampara or a line of teachings, the persons who are close in the line of teachings. Whereas traditionally, Babajis and other persons, other Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they stress Tattva, but they also stress initiation. And they're very strict about it. To this day, sometimes you may go to a festival to the Gopinath temple or some place, some big temple. They may ask you, what disciplic line do you belong to? Who is your guru? It's a common question. And if you say, well, my guru was XYZ Maharaj who lived 100 years ago, I never met him, but I'm inspired by him. It doesn't work. They're not going to go for that. Now, some Ridvik temples, they might appreciate that. And that's okay. So why not? That's another branch of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. There are also Gaudiya Vaishnavas. But strictly speaking, traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavas won't appreciate that. So they also stress this mantra line, which is important. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, I'm speaking now according to my understanding of what I've heard from Srila Prabhupada and what I've seen in India and things over the years. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he saw that, first of all, he wanted to spread Gaudiya Vaishnavism all over the world. And he saw that Gaudiya Vaishnavism was being held in kind of a stranglehold by certain caste Goswamis and certain Babajis, and especially caste Goswamis, who were stressing this line of initiation. And that was their main qualification, is that. So he, in opposition to that, he presented that no, that the real thing is not just your seminal, your birth line, or even your initiation line, but how close are you in Tattva to our line? That's a very, very important thing. But at the same time, let's not pretend that there's nothing to initiation. Srila Prabhupada also stressed that very much. In, I think it's Chaitanya Chaitamrita Madhya, chapter 15, text 108, purport, if I'm correct. There's a text, Prabhupada quotes a verse, Adikshitasya Vomaru. That is someone, Adikshitasya, they haven't taken birth, haven't taken initiation. In Vomaru, they may take birth again as an animal. So what to speak of getting bhakti, you're not even going to be able to continue with the human birth in the next life. It's very, very important that we should take initiation. But initiation is not just a show. And that's such an important thing. And let's think about this in terms of our own practical society. I see so many times devotees intuitively they're discouraged when it's presented, when there's so much stress given on initiation rather than bhakti, rather than understanding tattva. And one example of this is sometimes somebody gives a class and they may be a really nice person and they're initiated by some senior person, maybe they're initiated by Srila Prabhupada even. But when they start speaking, Hare Krishna. Like one class I sometimes mention was given by a friend of mine, actually, very senior disciple, Srila Prabhupada. He's passed away now. But he gave a class once in Vrindavan during Kartik time, and I happened to be there, and I was very eager, oh wow, it's a Bhagavatam class, I want to go to Vrindavan. And the main part of his class was that Krishna's blue, and so is Spider-Man, and so is Superman, and so Krishna's kind of like Spider-Man or Superman, the real Spider-Man or Superman. And maybe that might be kind of a cool thing to tell a Sunday feast group or something in the New York temple or San Francisco or something, but in Vrindavan during Kartik to a group of devotees, I felt a little depressed by it. You know? So intuitively, we have some understanding. We want to hear something of substance. And it's not just who you're initiated by. I'm sorry. And I do give respect to all disciples of Srila Prabhupada. I do give all respect to all disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And we had the good fortune to have association with I don't know, 4 or 5 different such personalities over the years. But I'm not only impressed by who they're initiated by. We give some formal respect by that. But we want to know, what have you imbibed? Otherwise, it just becomes a formal church. And Vrinda Sundari, this is my understanding of why Srila Prabhupada stresses that Narottam Das Thakur was a direct disciple of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, when it's not true. He was initiated by Lokanath Goswami. And anyway, who's else's name?
Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Nityananda.
Yeah, there's a few.
That's the other one she mentioned.
It's not coming to my mind. Oh, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Narottama and Vishwanath. Between Narottam Das Thakur and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there's like 100 years in there. But in our disciplic line, you're mentioning here Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami saying that he was the guru of Narottam. But that may be possible. At least Narottam met Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. I don't know any exact stories, but they were contemporaries. And they were also in Vrindavan. It's almost certain that he'd met him. So that's a possibility. But Narottama and Vishwanath, there's like 100 years between them. So the answer again is this Bhagavat Parampara. So I've seen, to really get into some really point blank stuff about this, I've seen very harsh debates going on between pundits in our Gaudiya line, in our Bhaktisiddhanta Dara, our line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, meaning either Gaudiya Math or ISKCON pundits, and pundits who are in the line of Babajis or Goswamis, who generally want to smash your faith and convert you to their particular camp. Fine, whatever. I'm not very impressed by that kind of motivation. And I can see something on both sides. I can give some respect to both sides. It's not that it's important to have diksha. It's important to have some disciplic succession. And it's very unusual to say that, the such and such person's, the disciple of such and such person, and they're 100 years apart. So we should understand why Srila Prabhupada was doing that. And this is my understanding about this Bhagavat Parampara. Narottam Das Thakur, we consider him to be a direct disciple of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, although he was actually initiated by Lokanath Goswami. But in his writings, we can see the mood of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Narottam Das Thakur he's given us everything in Gauranga Mahaprabhu in his writings. This is what it says to me. And Prabhupada makes this kind of comment. Whereas Lokanath Goswami, I'm not recalling any writings of his. Someone can correct me, but he's not so well known for his particular teachings. There's a few conversations in Prema Vilas and some things he has, but I'm not aware right off the head, on top of my head, of any writings that he gave. So let's go on. Why Prabhupada translated the 40th verse in the first chapter of Adi Lilas, Nityananda Ram is a plenary portion of manifestation of I've been initiated by him. Bengali seems to say I'm his servant. I would, again, say that it's in this line that he's speaking like this. And again, the motivation, let's understand the motivation. Let's not just be blind followers of Srila Prabhupada, but let's try to consider why he did certain things at certain times. If we're blind followers, I can tell you a few things you might do if you're a blind follower. You might do achaman, taking water in your right hand, putting it in your left, and drink water from your left hand. Because that's what Prabhupada did. In some photos, which I had a copy of one of the early puja books, which was published in like 1968 or 69 or something. This kind of very rare old book. And they have photos of Prabhupada, and they tell it in the thing that you put the spoon in your right hand and you put the water in your left hand and you drink like that. That's not the way you do it the other way. Your right hand is pure, your left hand is impure. Or you might think Prabhupada installed the deities of Jagannath, Bali, Subhadra in San Francisco. He didn't do an abhishek, didn't do a fire sacrifice. There's no mantra, no mantras chanted. He just waved candles. And they gave me all these drunk hippies who, the girls were off the altar and the boys were on LSD and everybody's drugged out and eating meat and whatever. And they're waving this candle in their madness and chanting Hare Krishna. And that's the installation of the deity, so that's the standard.
Whoa.
As my Guru Maharaj once said, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Sajjana Toshini, he says the symptom of an Upasampradaya is you take an extraordinary act given by a great personality and you make it a standard. Prabhupada did a lot of extraordinary things, a Vedic initiation, whatever. And I'm not saying that those things can't continue today, that someone can't give initiation through a proxy. Prabhupada had most of Prabhupada's disciples, when they got initiated, someone else did the yajna. For a large number of them, someone else chanted on their beads. That was a common thing. But that's very, very extraordinary. And Prabhupada was giving Gayatri Mantra through a recording for a lot of the devotees. And Prabhupada authorized it. Let's not argue with it, but that's an extraordinary thing. And if we try to make that into a general standard, and we don't have the spiritual potency that Srila Prabhupada had, it's not going to have the same result. So we should understand why Prabhupada did certain things. We should think about it. That's our function as disciples. To think, not just to be blind followers and just do what we've been told. Why? Because I said so. But we should understand who's not muted. Excuse me. Somebody's not muted. Everybody muted. Is it going up the loudspeaker maybe?
Haribol?
Can you mute yourself, please?
Sorry.
Some background noise. Our background noise finally stopped, thank God. So again, my answer to this second point is the same as the first answer, that we should understand why Srila Prabhupada did what he did. And they're establishing this Bhagavad Parampara, not as sometimes some neophyte devotees in our line think, and our line means the line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, think that it means that this is an absolute thing and this is a traditional thing. No, it may be an extraordinary thing. But they did it because they needed to rescue, to take away Gaudiya Vaishnavism from the control of those caste Goswamis. And they need to establish the real thing is to understand Siddhanta and not just have some initiation. As we see going on many times in our society today, the devotees just place so much stress on external initiation, but the real thing is Dibya Gyan. Rupa Goswami speaks about this. It's Sanatana Goswami. Initiation means that you have some understanding of philosophy, not just that you have a name now and 3 strings of beads and maybe a string or something. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada says that Kaviraj Goswami was initiated by Nityananda Prabhu because Nityananda Prabhu was given his mercy to him. And in the Bengali, let's see if I can find that 40th verse, first chapter of Adi Lila. Oh boy. My computer's having a little trouble. 40th chapter, 40th verse. Okay. Kaviraj Goswami says, Nityananda Roy, Prabhu Swarup Prakash. The Nityananda Prabhu, he's the Swarup Prakash. He's a personal manifestation, Prabhupada translates it. Tanur Pada Padma Vando Jana Mui Das. And he says that I'm his das, I'm his servant. Prabhupada translates it here, that Sri Nityananda Ram is a plenary manifestation of the Lord, and I've been initiated by him. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances under his lotus feet. So thank you, Brenda Sundari. I really hope that in our society, these kind of questions can always be legal. If someone even questions why did Prabhupada translate something in this way or that way, we should think. It's an extraordinary, everybody knows the meaning of Das. Every new bhakta understands the meaning of Das. It doesn't say anything about Dikshit there or Sishya or disciple, anything like that at all. It just says that I'm his servant. So then why does Srila Prabhupada, and we should look to answer this question, first of all, from the perspective of having faith in Srila Prabhupada. We have faith in Prabhupada. Why did Prabhupada speak like this? So again, my suggestion is that he wants to show that because he's gotten the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, and Nityananda Prabhu may be more prominent in his life. I oftentimes quote my Guru Maharaj. One time a devotee asked him a great question: who is more important, the Diksha Guru or the Siksha Guru? The Guru Maharaj's answer was, whoever occupies your heart. And that's the standard of our disciplic succession. And therefore we see Swarupa Raghu. The Raghunath Das Goswami is considered to be Swarupa Raghu. He belongs to Swarup Damodar Goswami. But he's initiated, Krishna Guru, you there? He's initiated by some, I can't remember his name, Yadunandanacharya. He's initiated by Yadunandanacharya. He writes that himself in his own writings. Nowhere is it said he's initiated by Swarup Damodar Goswami. But we consider him to be Swarupa Raghu. Who's the most important person in his life? Swarup Damodar Goswami. But his Diksha Guru is Yadunandanacharya. And Yadunandanacharya is a good friend of Haridas Thakur. He's a disciple of the Advaitacharya. He's pretty good stuff. But Swarup Damodar Goswami, that was the primary person in Raghunath Das Goswami's life. So in this case, perhaps Prabhupada, I can't say why Prabhupada is saying this, because Prabhupada doesn't explain, but perhaps Prabhupada is saying this because Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami he got something more from Nityananda Prabhu, and he felt this connection with Nityananda Prabhu. That would be my suggestion. And again, I'll open this up right now. Does anybody have any other thoughts about that? Any other different ideas you'd like to share? Okay. Otherwise, I'll go on to Bindu Sundari's next question.
Can you repeat that quote about the Upper Sampradaya?
Yeah, so Jai Gaur is asking me to repeat this quote that my Guru Maharaj made about Upper Sampradaya. It's brilliant. I don't believe him. He said that Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Sajjana Toshini, Guru Maharaj once said, defined an Upper Sampradaya, or a Sampradaya which has gone in the wrong direction, which is deviated. An Upper Sampradaya he defined as someone taking an extraordinary activity of a liberated soul and making it a norm, and making it a general standard.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
amazing.
Yeah, I agree. So question number 3 from Bindu Sundari. In the purport of the 34th verse, Prabhupada writes, let me go to the 34th verse. I can do that. The computer's kind of hiccuping here. It's getting really slow. I gotta do something. 34th verse. Okay. In the purport of the 34th verse, Prabhupada writes that the Guru who first initiates one with the Maha Mantra is to be known as the initiator. So what is the meaning of initiate? Well, of course, we know in English, for those of us who are native English speakers, initiate means to begin something. So when Prabhupada says this, and first of all, too, all of our answers that we're giving here are relative. I'm not able to offer quotes from our acharyas or something to conclusively prove something. This is my humble understanding. So I can only offer it like that. So the word initiate, and Prabhupada was very good with English, initiate means to initiate or to begin something. So someone who first initiates one with the Maha Mantra, they're the initiator. So in that sense, the word initiator could mean that person who's beginning something, because they're giving you the Maha Mantra. And just as Prabhupada wrote a letter to Sandra Temple, I think her name was something Temple, what a funny name. And I don't know, as far as I know, she never got initiated. Prabhupada wrote this interesting letter. He said, yes, you've gotten the Maha Mantra from my disciples, therefore you are in disciplic succession. Prabhupada said that. Now, of course, that's obviously Prabhupada is also encouraging that lady, and it doesn't mean that someone shouldn't take initiation directly in our line. It doesn't mean that it's the same thing. But Prabhupada said that. And it's a fact that that person who first gives us a Maha Mantra, it's a very, very special thing. So Them's my thoughts, Linda Sundar, on your nice questions. You angry with anybody with that? Does that make sense? Agree, disagree? I got to be respectful of the temple president in Denver.
I don't expect it to be simple.
Thank you very much. So I'm so happy that we can have a sangha and devotees can raise their hand and say something like, excuse me, but Prabhupada said something here and doesn't really seem like it makes sense. Because I know in some places, if you ask something like that, you just chew your head off. How dare you? Prabhupada's a Shakti avatar, and you should just have faith in him. Whatever he says is absolute. And they don't answer your question. And it just destroys our society, frankly speaking. We become like a Taliban or something.
Yeah. It doesn't give space for nuance and and depth.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, Brenda Sundar, she's a temple president in Denver, Colorado. But Denver, Colorado, they have a certain kind of mood there. And it's different. It's not the same as the mood as the devotees have in Gujarat, or the same mood as in South India, or the same mood as in China or different places. And that's nice. That's contributing to the value of our movement, I think, because unity and diversity, we have so many different voices and things. And I like the way you guys do things in Denver. So is that okay? My humble
Yeah. I appreciate that. I mean, how can it be just one person? How can it be only formal? I mean, spiritual life is rich and dynamic, and we may not. We may. Krishna's dynamic. Krishna's dynamic. So the way that he moves and the way that his devotees and empowered servants move is, I don't expect it to be understandable completely.
My grandma used to say that Krishna, he's crooked. It's very difficult to understand someone who's crooked. Krishna's crooked in 3 places. So it's a very difficult thing. And some aspects of bhakti, I don't want to say it's a relative, they may be absolute. But when, in absolute sense, when we talk about rasa in one sense is relative. It's absolute, but it's relative, because the rasa, the mellow that the gopis have, is different than the mellow that general the rickshaw wallers have in Dwarka, or the street sweepers, or Kubja has, or this or that. It's absolute, but it's relative to each one of those persons. And I feel strongly in our society, one of the greatest gifts I think Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave, it's something my Guru Maharaj repeated many, many times, is that we should not think ourselves the seer of other persons. And if we all took that attitude in our society, my God, it would be a lot more peaceful place. If we took the attitude that, anyway, who am I? But I've got my instruction from my Guru Dev, and I'm trying to do the best that I can. And they have a different understanding. That's okay. But if I'm in charge, if I'm the temple president, if I'm the bhakta leader, if I'm the mother or father, then maybe I have to say something. But if I'm not, then hey, let me just do what's been given to me. I'll grow some plants, I'll paint some walls, I'll give a class, I'll do whatever. And I am peaceful and satisfied with that. Thank God. I don't have to do that other thing. If we would take that attitude that I'm not the seer of other persons and I can respect their bhakti, oh, what a wonderful, I just think it would be a wonderful society. That makes sense, Brenda Sundar? You agree with that? I think it's
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Tri Yuga Prabhu just makes a comment. He says, unfortunately, I can't stay any longer today. I have to go. Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this wonderful Sangha. It was good to hear what it means to hear in faith. I learned a lot today. Thank you, dear Madhananda Prabhu, and dear devotees. This Sangha gives life.
Yeah.
Gives me life. Hare Krishna. Ujjwala Rasika, there you are. Nice to see you. We have some other questions I want to read out. Okay. This is from Gornitai Prabhu. He's been patiently waiting for me to read his questions. Let me just get down this in here. So Gornitai Prabhu says, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 15, from text 7 to 12, is described a strange relationship between Lord Chaitanya and Lord Advaita Acharya. They worship each other. Can you comment on that, please? Yes, what a nice question. Let's look at that section of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I can get my computer to cooperate. Let's see. It's not cooperating. There it goes.
Running too many tasks.
I think so. Once in a while, once a year, you need to reboot the computer or something. Whether it needs it or not. Madhya 15, 7 to 12. Too many tasks. Okay, Madhya 15, 7 to 12. So, Garibasi kore Prabhu Nama Sankirtan, Advaita Asya kore Prabhu Pujana. That Mahaprabhu, Garibasi, he'd be sitting there in the room, and he's doing Nam Sankirtan, which Prabhupada translates here, interestingly, is chanting on beads. Nam Sankirtan. And then Advaita Asya, Advaita Acharya comes along. And what does Advaita Acharya do? Kori Prabhuda Pujana. He starts worshiping the Lord. Right? And the next few texts describe the different things he would offer, some scented water to wash his mouth and feet. And then he would put sandalwood paste all over him, and he'd put a flower garland on him, and put some tulsi manjars on Mahaprabhu's head. It's very interesting. Gala mala dena, then means to offer a mala. Mataya tulasi manjar. So mataya means on the head. So he was offering a tulsi manjars on his head. And then jada hate, hate means the hands, with his hands, he'd probably folding his hands. Stuti Kori, he'd start offering some prayers, and Vandana Namaskari, obeisances to the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then, after Advaita Acharya finished doing that, Puja Pati Pushpa Tulsi Sesha Jay Achila Shai Shabalana Prabhu Acharya Pujila. Then, after he was worshipped by Advaita Acharya, then Mahaprabhu, he took that same dish with flowers and things, and whatever paraphernalia was there, and he started worshiping Advaita Acharya. So, let's see, I've got too many things up. And then he said, one of my favorite comments from Mahaprabhu to Advaita Acharya, said, Yosi Sosi Namostute. Whatever you are, I offer my obeisances to you. Or as Sridhar Maharaj, Prabhupada's disciple, once, I think my very last exchange with him, he was coming up the steps a few days before he left this world, and I gave him one of our magazines, magazine about Lord Shiva, the first Lord Shiva magazine. Can you find it in there in the end?
Is there another? Is it here?
Part 1, yeah. Just grab all the magazines. Hand it to me.
Yeah.
It's a green one. Not that one. This one. So I got to show you a picture. I handed this to Sridhar Maharaj, Prabhupada's disciple. And I said, Maharaj, I just wanted to give this to you. This is our latest Krishna Katamrita magazine we made. And he took it, and his response was, looks weird. Okay. That's Sridhar Maharaj. So when I did this, I just always hear his voice again. Looks weird. Okay. And so when I read this comment from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Advaita Acharya, Yosi Sosi Namostute. Yeah, it's weird, but anyway, our obeisances to you. You're a little weird, but whatever you are, you are. Yosi Sosi Namostute. Whatever you are, you are. I offer my respects to you. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what does he say here? He says that Mukha Vajja Kori. Mukha Vajja Kori. Vajja means like music or sounds. Kori means to do. Mukha just means from the mouth. So probably in terms of, he makes a sound within his mouth. I don't know what that means. I mean, maybe I don't want to do it. We used to do some stuff before when I was a street musician in America, Hare Krishna. And anyway, it says here that he would make these sounds with his mouth. And what would Prabhu? Hasya Acharya. And then Advaita Acharya, Hasya Acharya, he would start laughing. Advaita Acharya would laugh. It's just bona fide to laugh. And then the next verse he describes, E mata anyonye korena namaskar, Prabhu reje nimantrana kore acharya bhar. So E mata, this is what was going on. In this way, Prabhupada translates. Anyanye, to each other, anyanye korena namaskar. They were offering obeisances to each other. And then Advaita Charja, Nimantrana Kore Acharya, Bhara. Again and again, he would give some invitations to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is when Mahaprabhu was staying here in Jagannath Puri. And he was again and again being invited to go to that place, which is today known as the, what mud? Krishna Kum's not here either. I can't remember. Advaita Charja's place here in Jagannath Puri. Anyway, the Hoya Mata, that voice in the background. Thank you, Krishna Khan. She still has a brain. She's not getting, what do you call that disease when you lose a brain, which I can't remember the name of the disease because I got that disease.
Alzheimer's, dementia.
Yeah, like that. She doesn't have that thing. So this is a really strange relationship. But Advaita Charya is a really strange guy because this is Advaita Charya. Advaita Charya is Sadashiva. And he's pretty strange. And as we were speaking about him the other day, he's so strange that Krishna calls to him and says, look, I want you to go and speak some bogus philosophy and tell everybody that you're supreme and they shouldn't worship me, they should worship you. And Advaita Charya says, okay, boss, I'll go ahead and do that. And Advaita, Lord Shiva, he's telling Parvati that you shouldn't hear from those persons who are pashandis, who are atheists, who look like saintly persons, but they're atheists. And she says, what is a pashandi? And he says, it's someone who says anything other than that the Supreme Lord, the personal form of the Lord is absolute. That's a pashandi. Okay, I got it. How do they dress? I mean, they wear dhotis, or they wear Levi's. What kind of tilak do they have and stuff? And then Lord Shiva starts telling her, you can recognize them because they smear ashes all over their body. Sometimes they don't wear any clothes. They wear bones around their necks. They wear tripunda, 3 lines going across, like that. This is in Padma Purana. And Parvati's listening to her husband, and she says, finally, I don't want to argue or anything, but that's the way you dress. And that's the kind of philosophy that you speak. So how do I understand this? And it's a very interesting point, which subtly is being made there, that even though this personality is such a great personality, and even though he's giving certain teachings, we may not accept them. We may not follow them. That's what's indirectly being spoken. And in fact, to substantiate this, Advaita Charya is described that he rejected some of his sons, except for Chayaratna, right? He rejected the other sons. What was their fault? We mentioned the other day in our Katha. Their fault was they liked what their father said. And their father was speaking some impersonal philosophy, Yoga Vashishta, and they liked it. And then later on, Advaita Charya said, actually, I just said that, don't pay attention to that. But the real thing is this over here, and he spoke something else. And they said, well, I don't really like the second thing he said, I like the first thing he said. Mm-hmm. And that's why they were rejected. Mm-hmm. So it's the same point. Someone is following something, but they're not actually really a devotee. They're a pashandi. They're an atheist because they don't have faith in the Lord. They're not following the final instruction. So why are Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to finally get to Gauni Thakur's question without going into all these tangents so much, why are Advaita Charya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu behaving in such a strange way like this? Well, because they're both God. And because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God, but he's coming in the mood of a devotee. Advaita Charya is also in the mood of a devotee. He's God. But he's coming, particularly one of his main services is to facilitate the entrance into the mood of Radharani. Because according to the Balya Lila Sutra, a verse we were quoting the other day, which I could look up, I have in my notebooks, Advaita Charya is a combined form of Mahavishnu, and not just Sadashiva, but in particular Gopishwar Mahadev. because it's Gopishwar Mahadev who grants entrance into the Ras Leela, or in this case, helps grant entrance into the mood of Srimati Radharani. So the Advaita Charya, the call of Advaita Charya is a Bahiranga Karan, or one of the main causes for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. But the Antaranga Karan, the internal mood is, he wants to understand Srimati Radharani. He has three reasons. Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kiddi Sobhanaya, etc. He wants to understand what is the nature of her love, what is it that she tastes, what is it she sees in him. Those are the internal reasons. So for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's Bhakta Rup, and he's coming in the mood of a devotee, and Advaita Charya is Bhagavan, so there's this competition. They're both Bhagavan, but both of them are also devotees, and they both want to worship each other as Bhagavan. In Advaita Charya, he wants to give respect to the Lord, but the Lord, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to teach us what it means to be a devotee, and part of what it means to be a devotee is that you should respect seniors. He's wanting us to respect Advaita Charya, because he's a very senior person. He's the Acharya. But Advaita Charya doesn't want that. And that's one of the reasons why he started speaking Yoga Vishishta philosophy, because he was sick and tired of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving respect to him. So he made it this whole thing. He started speaking this Yoga Vishishta philosophy, this bogus philosophy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he heard that, he became furious and went running there and started to beat Advaita Charya. And Advaita Charya's wife, no, he's an old man. Don't do that to him. Please leave him alone. And Advaita Charya was in ecstasy. Finally, you've been so respectful of me for so long. Now you're not giving me respect. You're finally coming and giving me what I want. You're going to beat me. That's real mercy. That's really, really good. So there's always a kind of competition in that sense between Advaita Charya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And perhaps for that reason, we should consider, why is it that Advaita Charya is not so prominent in Puri Leela? He's here. This chapter 15 of Madhya Leela speaks about Mahaprabhu taking prasadam in Puri at the house of Advaita Charya. But he's not so prominent here. And there's a few pastimes, but he's more prominent in Adi Leela, and his most prominent function is that he calls for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as we spoke in our session the other day, we also gave some suggestion, a kind of an internal reason within the Nam Sankirtan movement, a function that Advaita Charya serves. Also, let's not go to there right now. We already spoke about that. If someone wants, they can revisit that on a video. But the point being that Advaita Charya doesn't really fit in so much here in Puri. Although he does come to Puri sometimes, we don't hear about him so much in the Gambhira. Sometimes when there's an open house in the Gambhira, just after Rath Yatra time, and the devotee is getting ready to go back to Navadvip, and it's kind of an open house. It's still not as open as it is in other places in the Lord's pastimes. It's still the intimate associates of the Lord, but you're talking, it seems like 20 or 30, 50, maybe 100 devotees gathered together in the Gambhira, as compared to generally Sri Damodar, Roy Ramananda, Govinda, and sometimes Raghunath Das Goswami, maybe Rupa Goswami, sometimes just 2 or 3 or 4 devotees in the Gambhira. And we don't hear about it Advaita Charya at that time at all, because he's not privy to that thing. In the same way that Advaita Charya, in his form as Gopishwar Mahadev, he's there as the chokidar, the guardian to the Ras Leela. He grants entrance, but he himself is not able to go in and take part. He stays on the outside. So in the same way, Advaita Charya, he's granting entrance into the mood of Radharani to Krishna when he comes in the form of Mahaprabhu. But then when Mahaprabhu goes deeper into that here in Jagannath Puri in the Gambhira, Advaita can't go there. He stays on the outside. He needs to chokidar. Is that okay, Gornitai Prabhu?
Yeah, first of all, your joy is really that's the first point. Whatever you say when you are joyfully say, that's my feast. And yes, the topic is really, really deep, and I thank you very much to go such deep level. Thank you very much. I'm really happy.
Gornitai Prabhu, all that I can say to you is Yosi Sosi, Namostute. Whatever you are, you are. And I offer my obeisances to you. You may be a strange person, but we love you still. And I always remember, thank you for reminding me of Sridhar Maharaj in his comment. Weird. Okay. That was one of the best comments we ever got in the magazine. So, letters to the editor.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else who now, I want to stop there. We ran out of written questions, and I'd like to now go back to our further discussion on Chaitanya Charitamrita Mangalacarana, and I want to go back to some of the Prem Bhakti Vilas, the Prem Bhakti Chandrika, excuse me, of Narottam Das Thakur in our next session, if that's okay with everyone. And it's a little late, and we have a few guests here tonight, and we got a number of devotees online. Is anybody like burning up and want to offer some sagacious comment or enthusiastic thing? Ujjwala Rasada, you always have something really sagacious and wise to say and appreciate. And I know you have to go back to work. So you want to make any comment?
Yeah, my pranams to you, Prabhuji, and to all the devotees here. I have to say, I'm having a feast. I don't get to have this feast of being with you all on the screen as if I'm with you all in a room.
You know, I'll tell you something, Ujjwala Rasada. You're 100% correct. You're really missing out because it's been so really nice. And today, you know what? We celebrated Jai Gaur's birthday. His birthday's not actually for another week. We've been getting so tired. Every year we celebrate Anapayani Radha's birthday. And then everybody goes away. And Jai Gaur's birthday is like another week or two away. And Jai Gaur feels really depressed. Nobody loves him. Nobody pays attention to him. We just pay attention to Anapayani Radha. So today we had an official artificial carob cake. Let you figure that out. What is artificial carob? We had an artificial carob cake. And we had nice prasadam, and it was good. We got to appreciate Jai Gaur. Not as much as he deserves, but it's been really nice for kirtans and things. And we're just waiting for you. The rest of you to come. See, there's this beautiful picture.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Looking forward to. And by the way, happy birthday to you, Prabhu. Please send some carob cake, artificial carob cake, to all of us here.
This picture. Thank you, Ujjwala.
Yeah. Prabhu, this discussion is really enriching, and most of us needed to hear that Bhakti is not a military protocol to follow, and not that we have to fit in a square or a circle, otherwise we are not a Bhakta. So this overall perspective, I would call it as wholesome Bhakti, for the lack of the word, because it is so personalized and there is room for everybody's expression. And there is no exclusiveness here in Bhakti. So that message, when it is heard, makes it feel at ease, and that we belong to this place of Bhakti. So thank you for this discussion so much, Prabhuji. And the other point I really appreciated was your emphasis on Tattva. When giving Katha, emphasis on the Tattva Jnana, and Shravanadhikar comes with faith. And it could be a one-day devotee or a 75-year-old devotee. Shravanadhikar is with faith. That was awesome. Thank you, Prabhuji.
That's our real movement, not just the buildings and the fossils, the old people who are there. And as far as what you're saying about the military from a Bhakti, I remember some time back, we had some devotees in our ashram, and we asked one of them to put some pictures up. And they took about 6 or 8 pictures, and they put them like a big square. And I just no, that's just not going to work, And then somebody else came and they put it, kind of staggered it, and it was really, really good, So sometimes we have this kind of square mentality, and the Bhakti, I don't like squares. Squares are not good. We need to move about a little bit. It should be more fluid. So, right? some background things going on with Ujjwala Rasada. Anyway, you know. Leela Purushottam Prabhu makes a comment. Thank you, Ujjwala. Leela Purushottam Prabhu says, I experienced pure bliss hearing all your answers today. You were speaking out of my heart all the time. That's because I'm just living in the heart of Leela Purushottam Prabhu. I'm waiting for him to feed me more often. All the time. So many important points have been pronounced. Thank you so much, Prabhu. And some of the devotees were telling us the other day, I want to get to meet Lila Purushottam sometime. He's really cool. He seems really weird. They didn't say weird, but I could understand that's what they meant. We like weird people. Okay, anybody else like exploding with something you want to share? Okay, Jai Gore. Where's Jai Gore? Standing in areas.
I was thinking about your answer to Guru's question, saying it's offensive to give guitar preach to somebody who doesn't have faith in you. I was kind of thinking about like the hoping you could explain something about the temple Bhagavatam class dynamic, because there's like,
Can everybody hear him okay? Yes? Okay, sorry.
There's different people giving class every day and different people come to hear every day, and what to speak of the faith, they might not even have much of a relationship with the person.
Yeah.
So we have something to come in.
Well, it's like when we first begin to practice Krishna consciousness, for a lot of us, what does it mean to be a Hare Krishna devotee? It means I'm a member of ISKCON. And I follow the DBC, and I do this, and I follow the temple president, and I give donations, and that's what I am. And if I'm not good with those things, then it doesn't work. And so that's what we think sometimes about Bhagavatam class. It's just kind of like the box, or the square, the pictures. Huh? But after some time, maybe we start thinking on our own. And maybe we like to associate with certain kinds of devotees who might be weird to some other people, who might think in a different kind of way. And maybe that's very nourishing for us. Maybe we really need that. So I from the day one, when we've had this group, I wanted very much to try to share with the devotees the lessons that I learned from my Guru Maharaj in this regard, which were twofold. One was to support the mission of Srila Prabhupada, to be respectful of the managers and leaders, and treat them with respect and friendship and support. But at the same time, understand that I have not only a right, but I have an obligation. I have an obligation to myself to follow what resonates with my heart. And someone may say, but you're just a new devotee and you don't know what's right and what's wrong. That may be true. Just like we were speaking quite extensively in some recent classes about the importance of independent thinking. And we pointed out that you don't tell a 2-year-old child or 1.5-year-old child to be an independent thinker. Try the bleach. Maybe the bleach is good, maybe it's bad. They're telling you it's not good, but maybe it's actually good. Be an independent thinker. You can't tell a child like that. You can't tell a new devotee like that. But what's very suffocating in our society is that when we insist on treating all the devotees like that forever and ever, that you're always a new devotee and you're not allowed to think, and you should just eat the pablum, eat the baby food, and just go on and just, as one sannyasi friend of mine once said, that they're like mushroom devotees. You keep them in the dark and you feed them a bunch of poop. That's, but we're not going to be satisfied eating poop forever and ever, or being kept in the dark. We're not going to be satisfied we can't ask a simple question, which is an obvious question, like Brinda Sundari's questions were obvious questions. But honestly, I've seen sometimes some forums where if you ask that question, the response is you just get criticized like anything. How dare you question Srila Prabhupada? And that's like the Taliban. So we join ISKCON, and my identity as a devotee is the institution. That's the first thing. I need to have a group of people, and that's okay. That's good. We don't want to discourage that. But I'm not actually the institution. I'm an individual who's serving in the Seva Sangha mission of Srila Prabhupada, serving in that institution. But I'm an individual, and I may have friends, and my friends may think in a little different way than sometimes the managers or whatever, and that's okay. So we have our Bhagavatam class, and we want to support that. That Bhagavatam class serves a specific purpose. I found a lot of older devotees become frustrated with the Bhagavatam classes. Look, can't we hear something from Rupa Goswami Raghunath Das Goswami, I mean, come on, it's just always, only from Prabhupada's books, and we can't even hear anything from the commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur or Sanatana Goswami or Jiva Goswami or something. Come on. Well, we should understand the role of that Bhagavatam class. Srila Prabhupada wanted it for all of his temples. He wanted it as a daily function. And the temples were meant to be bases for preaching. The temples were meant to be places where we would train new people. And one of the primary ways we train them is through the Bhagavatam class. And through that Bhagavatam class, we all get on the same page together. Because we all have so many different ideas and moods and inspirations. But when we come together for Bhagavatam class and we hear, oh yeah, I like their inspiration. Yeah, that resonates with me. I go along with that. I like that. So that Bhagavatam class helps us all to come together. We should always support that. It's a very important function in Prabhupada's mission. Prabhupada didn't like it when devotees they weren't coming to the Bhagavatam class because they didn't like the class. There's a letter like that to one senior devotee, or about one senior devotee in Vrindavan. And he probably wrote it to Brahmananda, as I recall, about one other devotee who was going outside in Vrindavan and hearing some other classes in Sanskrit or Hindi from some very Rasik Vaishnavas because he wasn't satisfied with the classes. And Prabhupada's comment, he says, no, if he does like that, then everyone will go outside. That's first of all. The second thing is, if he doesn't like the classes, then he should give class. Mm-hmm. And he should make a good class. So let's be the solution to the problems that we see. If there's something that we don't like, if we don't like the class, then let's give a really good class. Let's be the solution for that thing. And it's natural. I heard a beautiful class from Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj at the Bhakti Sangam one year in Ukraine, where he was speaking about the sequence of hearing. And in the beginning, we hear in a general way, just like Kitchi. We just hear because it's Bhagavatam class, and one person knows a lot of shlokas, one person's really, really into Varnashram Dharma and Sri Dharma, and all that kind of stuff like that, and they're just giving class, and they're quoting things, and that's okay. And another person comes along, and they're like, Govinda Lilam Rita, yeah, and they're speaking something else, and you're like, okay, that's a little far out too. And there's just so many, that's unity and diversity. There's so many different classes, and we're attending because it's Bhagavatam class, and maybe sometimes something even wrong may be said in the class. Oh my God, how shocking that is. We should expect it. And maybe even some of the senior devotees might be disturbed enough to say something to them or say, please, maybe better you don't give class for a while until you dress properly or whatever it is. And so Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj says in the beginning, he's quoting Bhakti Sundar, but we hear in a general way from everyone. And it's just the same. Prabhu, what do you mean you want to hear more from this person than that person? He's also a devotee in ISKCON. Why are you making distinctions? We should hear from everybody. Don't be a fanatic. Some neophyte devotee may speak like that. But as we progress, we naturally want to hear more from certain people. And that person, Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj is explaining, because they have a certain mood. It's not just the information content that they're giving that I want to take notes on everything. What was that shloka again? And what was this philosophical point? I want to collect all that information. But I want to know the mood of that person. And Maharaj commented, according to Jiva Goswami, that generally that person becomes either a Diksha Guru or a Siksha Guru. And we start hearing more from that person. And that's needed for our bhakti. Because if we just hear from so many different people in kind of a shotgun fashion, it's okay, but we're not going to be vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunanda. We're not going to be one-pointed. But at the same time, we're supporting the society. But my strong suggestion is, and this is why partly one of the reasons why we've started this Sangha, is that we need to come together and be more one-pointed. And here together in a small like-minded group. And not everybody can join this group. And most of you some of you have been with us for, I don't know, Jaguar, how long do you think? 5 years? 4 years? Yeah. 4 years, like that. Some of you have been hearing from us regularly for 4 years, practically every week. And some for 2 or 3 or whatever. but it's an intimate Sangha. And as we mentioned previously also, on every other Sunday, I have another Sangha that we do. And you guys are not invited because that's also a private Sangha, although you may be a guest sometimes. But that's also a private Sangha, and they have their little group. And they need that boundary to keep some intimacy. Amita made a comment here. Thank you so much for this enlightening talk. Some questions are answered, even without asking. It's nice that you're taking part here tonight, Amita. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So anybody else is exploding with some comments you want to share? On a pine, you going to explode? No? Yeah, anything you want to share? You never hear. Okay. On a pine, never comes, and she's friendly here. Anything? Vilma?
No, it's still
Is it okay? Okay. Vilma's just here. Vana, anything wise you like? Vana has a lot of wisdom. Okay, Reed. By the way, Reed is about to die. You may never meet him again in a few days. He's going to have a new name and a new birth. He's going to get initiated. And our next session, we'll find out what his new name is going to be. We're looking forward to that. He's going to go to Chennai in a couple of days and take initiation from Jayapataka. Anapayani Radha. You want to flip around this thing?
I just want to appreciate one point I really thinking about that you told when someone takes extraordinary activity of some exalted personality and make it a standard. So this is apasampradaya. So we have to be really careful. It's really important, not just in connection with Srila Prabhupada, but with our spiritual masters as well.
Yeah. I'll give you a wonderful example. I heard this story from Vatsal Prabhu, who was a close associate of Jayananda. In fact, Jayananda is the one who convinced him to be a devotee. And Vatsal Prabhu was my first temple president when I joined. Jayananda Prabhu was not your average Hare Krishna devotee. First of all, he didn't wear a dhoti very often. He wore like Levi's, and his clothes were always dirty with oil and things. And he was just working really hard. And once somebody asked him, "How did you make so much advancement?" And he said, he was quiet for a moment. He said, "I don't know." He said, "I'm too busy working to think about that." He's just too busy doing service. Anyway, one day they were working on the Rath carts, and one of the devotees who was there was complaining, "I'm really hungry, and we should get some prasadam." And Jayananda was just like completely fixed on working on his cart. And the devotee's complaining he wants something to eat. And Jayananda reached over and he took a can of axle grease. And he dipped his hand in the axle grease and he ate a handful of it. And then he offered the axle grease to the other devotee. What is axle grease? Axle grease is a kind of grease or oil lubricant that they use to lubricate an axle or a wheel in the vehicle.
It's thick. Like
It's a what do you call it? A oil product, a petroleum product, and it's very, very toxic. You can die eating that. So Jayananda did it. So maybe that should be a standard, at least when we're making Rath Yatra cards, right? That everybody should just eat some axle grease. Right? Jayananda Prabhu did it. There's a similar story about Shripad Shankaracharya, that once he had a group of disciples who were following him, and they went to a village. And when the villagers saw these sadhus, they became inspired. And one of the villagers came out, and he had a shop. He was selling sweets. And he made some offering to Shankaracharya. He gave him some sweet. And Shankaracharya ate the sweet. And all of his followers thought, that's pretty good. So they all stood in line and they begged something, because we're sadhus also. We're with Gurudev. And they all begged a sweet from that Mishtiwala, that sweet salesman. And Shankaracharya just saw what was going on. And he didn't say anything. I'm sorry about the background noise. What can we do? He didn't say anything. But he went to the next shop. The next shop happened to be a blacksmith shop. And he called out to the blacksmith and said, "Hey, would you give me some charity?" He said, "Mars, I'm sorry, but I don't have any money, any food." And no, he said, "I would just like one red hot coal from your fire." Red hot, what? Yeah, give me, and give it to me in my hand. In your hand, it's so hot, it's going to burn me. Give it to me. And he took that red hot coal, that glowing ember from the fire, and put it in Shankaracharya's hand. And Shankaracharya ate it. And then turned to his disciples and motioned, "Okay, you guys like the sweets, now you should also stand in queue here." So we shouldn't imitate Gurudev. Gurudev may take a sweet from somebody, and then we think, oh yes, I'll also take a sweet. That's what it means to be a Hare Krishna devotee, to beg sweets, right? Not so simple. Good point. Back down to Pine.
It just makes me think that we have to be really attentive to our Guru Maharaj's activity. So, and really sometimes pray to understand what we should follow and what we shouldn't and should not try to imitate.
Yeah, we should be Anukor. It should be Anusar, excuse me, not Anukor. Anukor means to imitate, and Anusar means to understand and follow the essence. And therefore, Bhakti-Vinod has written that poem about the Saragrahi Vaishnava who takes the essence of things. We should learn to take the essence from Gurudev. There's many, many examples. We can give you that. Okay, anybody else? Go ahead. Amiyatma, Elena, you okay? How to show? Anything? Amiyatma, go ahead, so you flip around. You can get Elena to translate. Okay, just
we need to think to digest, it's so many deep things mentioned. Usually I need some time to digest and run away.
Just don't try to eat hot coals from your guru.
Can you please remind the number of the verse
Yosi Sosi Namostate? Whatever you are, I offer my obeisances to you. Weird. Okay. Yosi Sosi Namostate. Okay, that's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 15, text 11. Yosi Sosi Namostate, a mantra pade. That was the mantra that Mahaprabhu would say when he would see Advaita Charya. Yosi Sosi Namostate means you're weird, but I offer my obeisances to you. Whatever you are, you are. Okay. So whatever, we have a lot of weird people here today. Thank you all so much. We'll go ahead and stop there. We'll be back next week, and we'll go on with our Prem Bhakti Chandrika Katha next week. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Vancha Kalpa Darubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu